I should have known something was wrong the moment my mother-in-law offered us her house. Standing in her pristine living room, watching her perfectly manicured hands gesture at the crown molding and hardwood floors, I felt a familiar knot forming in my stomach. But desperation has a way of making you ignore your instincts. My name is Harper, and this is the story of how I lost everything to save my family. It just breaks my heart to see you and Ryan struggling with rent, Evelyn said, her voice dripping with concern that never quite reached her eyes. And sweet little Emma deserves a proper home, doesn't she? I watched my 5-year-old daughter twirl in the empty space, her blonde curls catching the afternoon light. Ryan stood by the bay window, hands in his pockets, wearing that boyish grin that still made my heart skip after 12 years together. "Mom, this is too much," he said, but I could hear the excitement in his voice. "The market value of this place." "Oh, hush," Evelyn waved him off. "What good is this big house doing me now? Besides, I'll be much happier in my condo by the lake. And this way, I can see my grandbaby whenever I want." There it was. The string attached to her generosity, wrapped so carefully in grandmother's love that refusing would make me look ungrateful. "We'd need to discuss the terms," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. "The mortgage payments, maintenance costs." "Harper, darling," Evelyn cut in, placing her hand on my arm. Her grip was gentle but firm. "You're always so practical. It's admirable, really, how you manage with your— what do you call it? Digital consulting?" Ryan chuckled. "Mom, Harper's business is doing great. She just landed that startup account last month." Of course," Evelyn smiled. "Though I always thought a traditional job would be more stable. Especially with a young child." Before I could respond, Emma ran over, tugging at my sleeve. "Mommy, can I have the big room upstairs? The one with the window seat?" "We haven't decided anything yet, sweetie," I said, but Ryan was already nodding. "Of course you can, princess. That was my old room, you know. Mom, remember when I used to read comics up there for hours?" Evelyn's face softened as she looked at her son. "You were such a thoughtful boy. Always dreaming big dreams." I bit back a comment about how those big dreams had led to 3 failed business ventures and a mountain of debt I was still helping pay off. Instead, I watched them reminisce, feeling like an outsider in what would supposedly be my new home. "The papers are already drawn up," Evelyn announced, pulling a manila envelope from her designer handbag. "My lawyer made it very simple. You'll take over the mortgage payments, and I'll gift you the equity I've built up. It's the least I can do for my only son." Ryan's eyes lit up. "Mom, this is incredible. Harper, can you believe it? No more cramped apartment." I looked around the spacious room, trying to picture our furniture here, our photos on the walls. Our life transplanted into this museum of Ryan's childhood. But all I could see was Evelyn, dropping by unannounced, critiquing my parenting, undermining my decisions. "We should sleep on it," I suggested. "Make sure we understand all the implications." "Oh, there's no rush," Evelyn said smoothly. "Though I should mention, I've had other offers. And the market being what it is." Ryan turned to me, his expression a mixture of hope and pleading. Emma was still spinning, lost in dreams of her new room. I felt the walls of the trap closing in, lined with guilt and obligation and the desperate need to give my daughter a better life. "Where do we sign?" I heard myself say. As Evelyn produced a pen from her bag with triumphant efficiency, I caught a glimpse of something in her expression, not victory, exactly, but satisfaction. Like a spider watching its web do exactly what it was designed to do. I just didn't realize then that I wasn't the only one caught in it. It took exactly 3 weeks for the cracks to start showing. I was in our new kitchen, trying to concentrate on a client call, when Evelyn breezed in through the back door without knocking. Again. "Oh, are you still doing your little computer meetings?" she asked, loud enough that I had to mute myself. She began unloading grocery bags onto the counter, groceries we hadn't asked for, didn't need, and now would be obligated to thank her for. I wrapped up the call as quickly as I could, knowing from experience that ignoring her would only make things worse. Evelyn, we've talked about this. I work from home. These calls are how I make my living. Of course, dear. Though Ryan mentioned you might be looking for something more stable? She arranged organic produce in the fridge with surgical precision. My friend Margaret's daughter just started at that lovely accounting firm downtown. They're always looking for qualified people. The suggestion hung in the air like smoke. I gripped my coffee mug tighter. My business is doing well. The Thompson account alone covered 3 months of mortgage payments. She closed the fridge door with a soft click. Ryan says the payments are becoming a bit of a strain. My head snapped up. What? He's worried about you, dear. All this pressure you put on yourself, trying to prove something. It's not healthy for Emma. Before I could respond, Ryan walked in, fresh from his morning run. He kissed his mother's cheek, then grabbed an apple from the counter. Mom, you're a lifesaver. We were running low on groceries. We went shopping yesterday, I said. Oh. He took a bite, looking genuinely confused. Must have missed that. You didn't miss it. You were there. You insisted on those expensive steaks that, I stopped, noticing the familiar glazed look in his eyes. The one that appeared whenever money came up. Speaking of expenses, Evelyn chimed in, I noticed the gardener hasn't been by. The roses are looking rather neglected. We cancelled the gardener, I said. We're trying to cut back on unnecessary. But darling, proper maintenance is crucial for property value. You wouldn't want to let the house deteriorate, would you? After everything we've done to help? Ryan nodded, mouth full of apple. Mom's right, babe. We should reinstate the service. With what money? I demanded. The same money that's supposedly making the mortgage payments a strain? An uncomfortable silence fell. Ryan and Evelyn exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. I think Evelyn said carefully that if you're struggling so much with the basic upkeep, perhaps we should revisit the arrangement. We're not struggling, I said. We're budgeting. There's a difference. Of course there is, dear. Her smile was sympathetic in a way that made my skin crawl. I just worry about Emma growing up in an environment of financial stress. Mom's just trying to help, Ryan added, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. I looked between them, my husband and his mother, standing together against me in my own kitchen. No, not my kitchen. Her kitchen, with its custom cabinets and marble countertops that I was apparently failing to deserve. I have another call, I said, gathering my laptop. As I left, I heard Evelyn's voice, soft but clear. I hate seeing him worry like this. Perhaps if she'd consider a real job. I closed my office door and leaned against it, breathing deeply. Through the window, I could see Emma in the backyard, carefully arranging her dolls on the grass. She looked up and waved, and I forced a smile, waving back. My phone buzzed, a text from Ryan, Mom's staying for dinner. Says she'll cook. Problem solved. I stared at the message, remembering the groceries I'd bought yesterday. Now probably relegated to the back of the fridge behind Evelyn's organic offerings. Another small battle lost in a war I was only beginning to understand I was fighting. My laptop pinged with an email notification. The Thompson account, they wanted to scale back their contract. Family business, the message said. Going in a different direction. I wondered, with a sudden chill, just how many of Margaret's friends worked with digital marketing firms. The notification from our joint bank account hit my phone at 3 a.m. I'd been lying awake anyway, listening to Ryan's steady breathing beside me, wondering when we'd stop talking about anything real. The screen's blue glow illuminated a transaction I didn't recognize, $12,000 to Investment Opportunity LLC. My stomach dropped. We didn't have $12,000 to invest in anything. I slipped out of bed and padded down to the kitchen with my laptop. The banking website revealed more surprises, a series of withdrawals over the past month, each one carefully sized to fly under my radar. Restaurant charges for places I'd never been to. A jewelry store purchase dated last Tuesday, when Ryan was supposedly at a business dinner. The sun was rising when I heard footsteps on the stairs. Ryan appeared in his workout clothes, then froze when he saw me at the kitchen table. "You're up early," he said, reaching for his water bottle. "Investment Opportunity LLC," I said. "Want to tell me about it?" He took a long drink before answering. "It's a tech startup. Mom's friend's son is the CEO. Ground floor opportunity. You took $12,000 from our account without talking to me. I was going to tell you when it paid off." He smiled, that boyish smile that used to make everything okay. "Come on, babe. You know I've got good instincts for these things." "Like the food truck venture? Or the cryptocurrency mining setup that nearly burned down our apartment?" His face hardened. "That's not fair. I'm trying to build something for our future." "Our future?" I pulled up the banking app. "What about these dinner charges? The jewelry store? You're tracking my spending now?" He ran a hand through his hair. "Real healthy, Harper. Real trusting." Before I could respond, the back door opened. Evelyn walked in, carrying a basket of fresh muffins. "Good morning, dears." "Oh, you look tired, Harper. Trouble sleeping?" "Mom," Ryan said, "can you give us a minute?" "Of course, darling." She set down the basket. "Though if you're discussing the investment opportunity, I think it's wonderful. So much better than relying on uncertain income streams." I stared at her. "You knew about this?" "I might have made the introduction," she said, smoothing her blouse. "Richard's such a brilliant young man. Harvard Business School, you know." "That money was for the mortgage," I said. "And Emma's school fees." "Oh, don't worry about that." Evelyn waved her hand. "I've already spoken to the school. They're happy to wait for payment, given our family's long association." The room spun slightly. "You spoke to Emma's school about our finances?" "Mom was trying to help," Ryan said. "Which is more than I can say." "Finish that sentence," I dared him. "Please." Emma's voice broke through the tension. "Mommy? Why is everyone yelling?" She stood in the doorway in her unicorn pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Evelyn immediately swooped in. "No one's yelling, sweetheart. Grandma brought muffins. Would you like one?" "Emma, go upstairs," I said. "I'll be up in a minute to help you dress for school." "But Grandma's muffins. Now, please." After she left, Ryan shook his head. "See? This is exactly why I didn't tell you about the investment. You're so rigid about everything." "Rigid?" I laughed, and it sounded strange even to me. "Is that what we're calling financial responsibility now?" Perhaps, Evelyn interjected, "if you're finding the household expenses so overwhelming, we should discuss alternative arrangements." "Alternative arrangements," I repeated. "You mean like the accounting job with Margaret's daughter? Or maybe I should just stay home entirely, let Ryan handle everything?" "That might be best for everyone," Evelyn said softly. "Especially Emma." I looked at Ryan, waiting for him to defend me. He studied his water bottle instead. "I need to get Emma ready for school," I said, standing up. "And then I need to call our bank." "Harper," Ryan called after me, "don't do anything rash." I paused at the stairs, not turning around. Rash would have been trusting you with our savings. Again. As I climbed the steps, I heard Evelyn's voice drift up, poor dear. The stress is clearly getting to her. You know, Margaret's daughter just started seeing the most wonderful therapist. I reached for my phone, hands shaking, and opened my banking app again. It was time to make some alternative arrangements of my own. The first thing I did after opening my new private bank account was call June Patterson. She'd lived next door to us in our old apartment building. And despite Evelyn's dismissal of her as that retired schoolteacher, she remained the wisest person I knew. Come over, she said immediately. I'll put the kettle on. June's small house felt like a sanctuary after the suffocating grandeur of Evelyn's, our home. Emma immediately curled up with June's ancient tabby cat while I sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of chamomile tea. I've been moving money, I admitted. Small amounts, whenever I can. It feels wrong. Wrong like stealing, or wrong like lying to yourself? June asked, sliding a plate of cookies toward Emma. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Another bank notification. I nearly dropped it when I saw the amount, $50,000, transferred out of our joint savings to something called Caldwell Family Trust. Honey, you've gone white as a sheet, June said. I showed her the screen. Her eyes narrowed behind her reading glasses. When did you say Ryan's new investment opportunity started? Last month, right after. I stopped, the pieces clicking into place. Right after Evelyn convinced us to take over the house payments. One cookie is enough, Emma sweetheart, June said, then turned back to me. And the mortgage payments? Have they actually been going through? My hands shook as I checked the account history. The last 3 mortgage payments had been reversed due to insufficient funds. Each time, a deposit from E. Caldwell had covered the difference, plus exactly enough for Ryan's investment contributions. She's funding his gambling habit, I whispered. Only this time she's calling it investing. And using your family's security as collateral, June added grimly. Question is, what are you going to do about it? My phone buzzed again, a text from Ryan, where are you? Mom's worried. Says Emma's missing piano lessons. Emma doesn't take piano lessons, I said out loud. Not yet, Emma piped up. Grandma says I start next week. She already bought the piano. I stared at my daughter, her face smeared with cookie crumbs and complete innocence. When did Grandma tell you this? Yesterday. She said Mommy's too busy with her computer to take me, so she'll do it instead. June reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Harper, listen to me carefully. This isn't just about money anymore. I know, I said, watching Emma pet the cat. They're trying to erase me. Piece by piece. Another text from Ryan, Mom says if you're feeling overwhelmed, she can take Emma for a few days. Give you time to rest. The room felt suddenly airless. June must have noticed because she sent Emma to play in the garden where we could see her through the window. I have about 15,000 saved, I said quietly. Not enough to start over, but... Stay here, June interrupted. The guest room's yours as long as you need it. I couldn't. You can and you will. Her voice took on the tone that had managed classrooms for 30 years. Besides, I've been meaning to tell you. Remember that startup I invested in last year? The one you helped me vet? I nodded. I'd spent weeks researching the company for her, making sure it wasn't another scam. They're going public next month. My financial advisor says my initial investment will multiply several times over. She smiled. I could use someone with your expertise to help manage things. Hope flickered, dangerous and fragile. Through the window, I watched Emma chasing butterflies in June's garden, free and happy in a way she hadn't been in months. My phone buzzed one more time. An email from our mortgage company, final notice of default. If I do this, I said, they'll never forgive me. June's face hardened. Honey, after what they're doing, forgiveness isn't what you should be worried about. I took a deep breath and opened my laptop. It was time to start documenting everything. The call from Emma's school came during a client meeting. I almost ignored it, but something made me excuse myself to answer. The nurse's voice was carefully neutral. Mrs. Caldwell, Emma's running a fever of 102. We've been trying to reach someone for the past hour. I'm her mother. I'm coming right now. I was already grabbing my keys. Who else did you call? Well, your mother-in-law is listed as the primary contact. She said she'd handle it, but... My heart stopped. But what? She hasn't arrived yet. And Emma's asking for you. I broke every speed limit getting to the school. Emma was curled up on the nurse's cot, her face flushed and hair damp with sweat. When she saw me, she burst into tears. Mommy, Grandma said she was coming, but... SHH, baby. I'm here now. I gathered her burning little body in my arms. Let's get you home. My phone rang, Evelyn. I let it go to voicemail. At home, I carried Emma upstairs to her room, past the gleaming baby grand piano that had appeared in our living room last week. As I tucked her in, she grabbed my hand. Don't go, she whispered. Stay with me like before. Like before? Before we moved here. When you didn't have so many meetings. The guilt hit me like a physical blow. I'd been so focused on documenting the financial manipulation, on building my escape fund, that I'd missed how all this was affecting Emma. My phone buzzed again. A text from Ryan, Mom says you're making a scene at school. She had it handled. I was typing a furious response when I heard the front door open. Evelyn's voice floated up the stairs. Hello? Where is everyone? Up here, I called back, keeping my voice low for Emma's sake. Where were you? Evelyn appeared in the doorway, immaculately dressed as always. I had a lunch appointment with the school board president. I couldn't just cancel. She pressed her hand to Emma's forehead. Oh dear, she is warm. I'll call my private pediatrician. I already gave her medicine, I said. She just needs rest. Well, I have that charity gala tonight, but I can cancel. No need. I'm staying home with her. But darling, you have that deadline. Ryan mentioned how behind you are on work. She smiled sympathetically. This is exactly why I've been saying. Get out. The words came out soft but sharp. I beg your pardon? Get out of my daughter's room. Get out of my house. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. You don't get to sweep in here and pretend you're the responsible one after leaving my sick child waiting for hours. Harper, she said, her voice taking on that familiar reasonable tone that made me feel crazy, I think you're overtired. Why don't you lie down? I can handle. Handle what? The mortgage payments you're manipulating? The investment scheme you're funding? Or maybe you'd like to handle my daughter's entire life while you're at it. Emma stirred fitfully. Evelyn's face hardened. I think we should continue this discussion downstairs. There's nothing to discuss. I sat on the edge of Emma's bed, taking her small hand in mine. I'm done letting you handle things. Consider carefully what you're saying, Evelyn said quietly. Ryan and Emma need stability. Structure. A proper family environment. Is that what you call this? Proper? She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Do you really think you can manage on your own? With your uncertain income? The courts tend to favor stable home environments. The threat hung in the air between us. Through the haze of fury, I felt something shift inside me, the last thread of obligation snapping clean. "You should leave now," I said. "And take the piano with you." After she left, I held Emma while she slept, watching her fever gradually break. My phone kept buzzing. Ryan, Evelyn, probably the school board president by now. I ignored them all and opened my laptop one-handed. Subject: urgent meeting request. To Family Law Associates. I typed with my free hand while Emma slept against my shoulder, her breathing finally easy and regular. The weight of her trust felt like armor against whatever was coming next. It was time to stop documenting and start fighting back. Ryan came home at midnight, smelling of expensive scotch and his mother's influence. I was in Emma's room, packing her favorite clothes into a small suitcase while she slept at June's house, still recovering from her fever. "What are you doing?" He stood in the doorway, swaying slightly. "What does it look like?" I folded Emma's unicorn sweater, the one Evelyn always said was too childish. "It looks like you're having another breakdown." He tried for his usual charming smile, but it came out wrong. "Mom says you threatened her today. Your mother left our sick daughter alone at school for hours. She had a meeting." "God, Harper, you're so..." He ran his hands through his hair. "Everything's always a conspiracy with you lately. The bank accounts, the investments, Mom's connections. The investments that emptied our savings?" I zipped the suitcase. "The connections that cost me 3 clients this month? What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone, showing him the emails. "Suddenly, all my local clients are going with other consultants. Consultants recommended by your mother's friends. Funny coincidence, right?" He barely glanced at the screen. "Maybe they just found better options. More professional ones." The word hit like a slap. I pushed past him into our bedroom and pulled out my own packed bag from under the bed. "Where are you going?" "June's. Emma's already there." His face darkened. "You took our daughter to that old woman's house without telling me?" "That old woman was there when our daughter needed someone. Unlike her grandmother. Unlike her father. You're not thinking clearly." He stepped closer, using his height to loom over me. "Mom's right, you need help. Professional help. We can find you someone." "Stop." I backed away. "Just stop pretending this is about my mental health. This is about control. Yours and Evelyn's. Everything we've done has been for this family." His voice rose, making me flinch. "The house, the investments, Emma's future." Emma's future? I laughed, harsh and hollow. "You mean the future where she learns it's okay for men to gamble away her security? Where she thinks it's normal for her grandmother to manipulate and isolate her mother? Don't be dramatic. I filed for divorce today." The words hung in the air between us. Ryan's face went through a series of expressions: shock, anger, and finally, something like pity. "You can't afford a divorce," he said quietly. "Mom's friends with every good lawyer in town. And with your unstable income, your emotional state." He spread his hands. "Who do you think the courts will believe?" My phone buzzed, a text from June: "Emma's asking for you. Fever's back." "I have to go," I said, grabbing my bag. Ryan blocked the doorway. "You're not taking my daughter anywhere. Move." "Or what?" He smiled, and for the first time, I saw Evelyn in his expression. "Face it, Harper. You've got nothing. No money, no connections, no proof of anything. Just paranoid accusations and a history of erratic behavior. How do you think that'll play in front of a judge?" My hand tightened on my phone, where all my carefully gathered evidence was backed up. Emails, bank statements, Recorded conversations, months of documentation that suddenly felt pathetically inadequate against the weight of Evelyn's influence. "Ryan," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "if you don't move, I'm calling the police." "Go ahead." He pulled out his own phone. "I'll call Mom's friend at the station." "You remember Captain Mitchell? From the charity gala?" For a moment, I saw it all clearly, the long game they'd been playing, the web they'd woven while I was busy trying to prove individual lies. Every connection, every friendly introduction, every social obligation had been another strand, strengthening their control. My phone buzzed again. "Emma's crying for you." I looked at Ryan, really looked at him. The man I'd loved, the father of my child, now a stranger wearing familiar skin. "Okay," I said softly. "You win." His shoulders relaxed slightly. I took advantage of that moment to duck under his arm and run, my bag banging against my hip as I flew down the stairs. His shout followed me into the night, but I didn't stop. I had nothing left except the truth. And maybe, just maybe, that would have to be enough. The email arrived 3 days after we moved into June's guest room. I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam, but the subject line caught my eye: "Startup acquisition, urgent notice to early investors." My hands shook as I read it. The small tech company I'd helped June vet last year was being bought out. Her investment, the one I'd researched so carefully, afraid of her getting scammed, had just made her a millionaire. And she'd listed me as a 10% stakeholder. The doorbell rang before I could process what this meant. Through June's peephole, I saw Ryan on the porch, looking unusually disheveled. "Harper, please," he called through the door. "We need to talk. Mom's lawyer says." "My lawyer says I don't have to talk to you," I answered. "I know about the startup money." My blood ran cold. I opened the door but kept the chain on. "How?" "Mom has friends at the investment bank." His smile was desperate, familiar. "But this is good, right? We can fix everything now. Pay off the debts, start fresh." "We?" "I've been thinking about what you said. About Mom's influence, about my spending. You were right." He pressed his forehead against the doorframe. "I miss you. Emma needs her family together." For a moment, I wavered. Then I noticed the expensive watch on his wrist, new, definitely not in our budget. "Where's Evelyn?" I asked. "What does that matter?" "Ryan. Where is she?" He straightened up, dropping the vulnerable act. "Parking the car." "Of course." I closed the door just as another car pulled into June's driveway. Evelyn emerged, immaculate as always, carrying a thick, manila envelope. My phone buzzed. A text from June, who was out with Emma, called the lawyer. "Don't sign anything." The doorbell rang again. This time, I opened it fully and stepped onto the porch. Better to face them in the open. "Harper, darling." Evelyn's voice was honey-sweet. "We have a proposal that could solve everyone's problems." "You mean your problems?" I nodded at the envelope. "Let me guess, I sign over my startup shares, and in return, you'll make the divorce and custody battle easier?" "We're offering you a chance to repair your family," she said. "Think of Emma." "I am thinking of Emma. That's why I'm done letting you manipulate us." Ryan stepped closer. "Babe, don't be stubborn. Mom's trying to help." "Like she helped with the house?" I pulled out my phone, opened a recording app. "Tell me again how that worked." "The mortgage payments, the investments, the convenient reversals whenever you needed gambling money?" "That's ridiculous," Evelyn snapped, but Ryan's face had gone pale. "You recorded us?" "Everything." I met Evelyn's eyes. "Including your conversation with the school board president about sabotaging my clients. Interesting what people say when they think they're among friends." Evelyn's composure cracked, just slightly. No one will believe. The SEC might. I smiled. They're very interested in investment fraud. Especially when it involves manipulating property titles and bank records. You wouldn't dare, Ryan said. Think about what this would do to my reputation. Your reputation? I laughed. You mean the one your mother built while you gambled away our savings? That reputation? Harper. Evelyn's voice turned pleading. We're family. No, I said quietly. Family doesn't destroy each other. Family doesn't use a 5-year-old girl as a pawn in their power games. A car pulled into the driveway, June returning with Emma. I saw the moment Evelyn registered what was about to happen, saw her reaching for her perfect grandmother mask. Leave, I said. Now. Before Emma sees you and this gets messy. This isn't over, Ryan warned. Actually, it is. I held up my phone. Unless you want these recordings going public. Your choice. They left just as June's car door opened, Emma bouncing out with an ice cream cone. She ran up the porch steps, chocolate smeared on her chin, completely unaware of what had just happened. Mommy, look! June let me get sprinkles. I hugged her close, breathing in her sweet, innocent scent. Over her head, I watched Ryan and Evelyn's car disappear down the street. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about becoming strong enough that they can't destroy you. 6 months later, I stood in our new apartment, watching Emma arrange her stuffed animals on her window seat. The view wasn't as grand as Evelyn's house, but the sunrise filled the room with a warmth I'd forgotten could exist. The divorce had been surprisingly quick once the evidence came out. Ryan's gambling debts ran deeper than even I'd known. And Evelyn's carefully constructed social network crumbled when the SEC started asking questions. Last I heard, they'd moved to another state, somewhere their name didn't make people whisper at charity galas anymore. Mommy, look! Emma held up a letter. It came under the door. My heart skipped until I recognized Evelyn's elegant handwriting. For a moment, I considered throwing it away unopened. Instead, I sat beside Emma, who was already absorbed in her toys again. Dear Harper, the letter began. By the time you read this, Ryan and I will be settled in Arizona. He's agreed to treatment for his gambling addiction. Too late for your marriage, I know, but perhaps not too late for him to be the father Emma deserves. I find myself thinking about my own mother lately. How she controlled every aspect of my life until I married young to escape her. How I swore I'd never be like her. Then spent years becoming something worse, a woman so afraid of losing control that she destroyed what she most wanted to protect. The money from the house sale is in a trust for Emma's education. No strings attached this time. It's not an apology, those require forgiveness I haven't earned. Consider it a grandmother's attempt to finally do one thing right. Take care of our girl. She has your strength, thank God, not our weakness. Evelyn. A text buzzed on my phone, June, inviting us for Sunday dinner. Through the window, I could see her tending her garden, the startup money having changed nothing about her except the size of her flower beds. Emma, I said, want to help June plant those new roses she got? Can I wear my unicorn sweater? Of course. She ran to get changed, and I looked at the letter again. Part of me wanted to tear it up, to hold on to the anger that had protected us for so long. But Emma's laughter drifted from her room, free and unguarded, reminding me that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. My phone buzzed again, a client notification. The business was thriving now, built on reputation rather than connections. Turns out when you stop trying to please everyone else, you find your own strength. Ready? Emma bounced back in, wearing the sweater Evelyn had hated. June says she's teaching me about thorns today. What do you know about thorns, sweetie? She considered this seriously. They hurt if you grab them wrong. But if you're careful, they protect the pretty flowers. I tucked the letter away, smiling at my daughter's accidental wisdom. That's right. They're not good or bad, they're just doing their job. Like you do your job? Protecting me? Something like that. We crossed to June's yard, where the afternoon sun turned everything golden. Emma ran ahead, fearless and happy, while I carried Evelyn's letter in my pocket, not as a burden anymore, but as a reminder that the lines between love and control, protection and possession, are often thornier than we expect. June looked up from her roses, her hands dirty but her smile clean and true. Perfect timing. These beauties need a fresh start. Don't all of us? I said, kneeling beside her in the soil. Emma joined us, carefully touching a thornless spot on the stem. Can we plant them by the window? So we can see them grow? Of course, June said. Though you have to be patient. The strongest roots take time. I watched my daughter learn about nurturing things that can both hurt and protect you, about the patience needed for real growth. The anger that had driven me for so long settled into something quieter, not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. Sometimes the deepest wounds and the strongest healing come from the same place, family. The trick is learning which thorns to avoid, which to grasp carefully, and which to let go.
I'm Kate, and I was raised in a modest home that was always filled with the aroma of freshly baked bread. After school, I enjoyed helping Dad knead bread of the family bakery that he inherited from his parents. Mom was different. She made more money than Dad ever did as a realtor, always wearing dapper suits and high heels. "Kate, come set the table," Mom shouted one night when I was 12 years old. I was gangly and ungainly, and my main interest was reading. Coming. As I spread out the dishes, I dog-eared my page and screamed back. Another calm month until I heard them start up again. Mom said in a contemptuous tone, "John, when are you going to get your act together?" Dad's response was kind. "Sarah, please, not in front of Kate." "Oh, who cares?" Mom lost her temper. She should know what a loser her father is. I held onto the table's edge and forced myself to hold back my tears. In our home, this was a typical scene. Dad attempting to maintain order while Mom made fun of him. I was aware that Mom felt stuck in a life she never desired and was upset about more than simply money. "Kate," Mom gave a bark. "Where's my wine?" With trembling hands, I quickly poured her a drink and put it down. The tablecloth was splattered with some. Mom's eyes blinked. "You worthless girl. Is there nothing you can do correctly?" Dad stepped in. "Sarah, it's only a little wine." Nothing was harmed. Mom gave him a fierce look. "You treat her too leniently. It's no surprise that she's becoming as pitiful as you." I buried my face in my pillow and ran to my bed. I had a deep affection for Dad, but I didn't understand why he tolerated Mom's behavior. For my part, I had mastered the art of being as discreet and silent as possible. When I woke up the following morning, there was an uncanny silence in the house. No click of Mom's heels, no fragrance of bread baking. Dad was seated at the kitchen table, his face pale as I slipped downstairs. "Where's Mom?" I inquired, even though I had a strong feeling that I already knew the answer. Dad handed me a note in Mom's beautiful handwriting without saying a word. "John, I can't do this anymore," it said. "I'm taking Richard with me. Instead of this all-town bullshit, he can offer me the life I deserve. Don't bother looking for me, Kate. You are only useless. You are not necessary to me. You're a loser, John, and you've made our daughter into one as well. Good riddance and goodbye." I felt as though I had been hit in the gut as I gazed at the page. Mom had left. In her final shot, she called me worthless and Dad a loser, abandoning us. The ensuing months were a haze of court cases and psychological distress. Dad petitioned to have Mom's parental rights revoked and filed for divorce. As we waited for Mom to arrive, I recall sitting in the chilly courthouse with my sweating hand gripping Dad's. She didn't. As the grown-up spoke, I lost myself in my thoughts, only to pick up on phrases like abandonment and unfit parent. Dad squeezed my hand when it was done. Softly, "It's done, Katie," he murmured. "Your mother's parental rights have been terminated, and the divorce is official. Now it's just you and me." With a mixture of relief and regret, I nodded. After that, life became more difficult. Dad put in a lot of effort and worked long hours in the bakery. I did the most of the chores even though I was only 12. After doing my homework when I got home from school, I would begin making supper and doing the wash. This pattern lasted for 3 years. Then things changed once again shortly after my 15th birthday. One day, Dad arrived home with a look of astonishment and sadness on his face. Saying Uncle Pete died, he fell onto a kitchen chair. Saying, "Oh, Dad, I'm so sorry," I gave him a strong embrace. He gave me a hug in return. Then with wide eyes he withdrew. "You won't believe this, Katie." He bequeathed me over $300,000. His sole surviving relative is me. I'm not sure how to handle it all. However, Dad immediately figured it out. He used some of the funds to extend the menu and upgrade the bakery's equipment. Our small bakery became the buzz of the town in a matter of months. Before we realized it, Dad was establishing a second site across town, hiring additional employees and extending the hours. Dad had 3 successful bakeries by the time I was 16. Our concerns about money were vanished. I gave up my after-school employment to concentrate on my education. We even traveled to Europe for 2 weeks, which was our first actual vacation. Over the years, Mom faded into the background. Although Dad dated from time to time, he never showed any desire in getting married again. We were content just the way we were, so I didn't push it. High school graduation passed quickly, filled with tears and cap-tossing. I had put in a lot of effort, and it had paid off. I was on my way to study finance at State University. Dad gave me a little package the morning I was scheduled to go. "What's this?" I opened it to discover a key and asked. Dad smiled. "Your present for graduating. It's an apartment close to the university. Rent and dorm life are no longer concerns." I was dumbfounded when I looked at him. "I can't, Dad. This is excessive." I protested, but he waved me away. "Katie, you deserve it. Go now and make me proud." College went by quickly. Determining to take use of the chance Dad had given me, I poured myself into my studies. I was working as an intern at nearby financial businesses while I wasn't in class or studying. I had a junior financial analyst position lined up by the time I graduated. I was standing in front of my apartment mirror, smoothing my blazer on my first day of work. "You've got this, Kate," I expressed to my mirror image. "Make Dad proud." Although the work was difficult, I enjoyed it. Instead of spending every bonus or increase I received, I invested it. I kept hearing Dad say, "Katie, money makes money. Use it wisely." Years went by. Those wise investments paid off by the time I turned 32. In addition to the flat where I resided, I also owned 2 other apartments that generated consistent rental revenue. It was a nice life. Then came the call that made all the difference. "Katie," Dad said in a strained tone, "will you please come over? I need to discuss things with you." He appeared older than I had ever seen him when I saw him seated at his kitchen table. "What is it, Dad?" With a knot in my gut from terror, I inquired. He inhaled deeply. Honey, it's cancer. Phase 4. Pancreatic. Everything shook on its axis. No, I muttered. There must be some mistake. However, there wasn't. A terrible roller coaster of therapies, remissions and relapses characterized the following year. Even when he was too sick to consume it, I made his favorite cheese soup whenever I had free time in the hospital or at Dad's place. When I got to Dad's house one cool fall day, he was sitting in his favorite recliner with a serious expression on his face. "We need to talk, Katie," he murmured, supporting the seat next to him with a touch. "The doctors gave me 6 months tops." "No," I remarked, angrily shaking my head. "They're mistaken. We'll seek another viewpoint." He softly interjected, "We, Katie? It's all right. I have come to terms with it. The bakeries are for sale. You're going to get everything. You will be prepared for life." I drew back and wiped my eyes. "Dad, I don't want your cash. I desire you." He gave a sorrowful grin. "I understand, my love. However, this is how I can look after you, even if I'm not around." The following 7 months were both difficult and valuable. We spoke about everything and nothing more than we ever had before. I committed his facial expression, every chuckle, and the scent of flour and sugar that clung to him to memory. Then he vanished one peaceful Wednesday morning. The funeral went by quickly. Then I sat with Dad's favorite apron in his empty house. The documentation had already been completed by the lawyer. Dad had left me everything as promised. I purchased 2 additional apartments with the money I made from the bakeries. Somehow, it felt natural to create something enduring, just like Dad had done. I was only beginning to get my footing a year after Dad's death. Taking care of my rental homes provided me a feeling of purpose, and work kept me occupied. I believed that I had found a new normal. Then the call arrived, which completely upended everything. "It's your mom," Kate said. "I've returned to the city. If you don't mind, I'd want to see you." My thoughts were racing. There was a part of me that wanted to hang up to protect myself from the lady who had left me, but there was also a part of me that was inquisitive and yet clung to the young girl I used to be. "Okay," I said to myself. "Let's meet at Rosie's Cafe tomorrow at noon." My stomach was in knots when I got to the cafe early the next day. I watched her enter as the clock struck 12. Despite her advanced age, she maintained her elegance. She wasn't alone, though. She was followed by a young female, about 17. Mom ran over as soon as she saw me. "Kate, you look amazing, my love. And here is your sister, Lily." It seemed as if someone had hit me, my sister. We took a seat, and Mom began to tell us about her lover, Richard, who had abandoned her soon after Lily was born, their financial difficulties, and her decision to return to her hometown in order to start again. She said, "I heard you have a rental property," in an upbeat tone. I was wondering if maybe. She faded off, but it was obvious what she meant. I glanced at Lily, who was obviously uncomfortable as she stared at her hands. I reflected about my father and how he had always instilled in me the value of kindness, especially in the face of difficulty. I remembered the frightened young child I was, hoping her mother would return. "Okay," I heard myself say. "I have a unit that's just become available. You can stay there." Mom's face lit up. "Okay, thank you. We'll pay rent, of course." I held up a hand. "No rent, just utilities for now." As we hammered out the details, I watched Lily. She looked so young, so out of place. I remembered being her age, feeling lost and alone after Mom left. "So Lily," I said, trying to sound friendly, "you're what, a junior in high school?" She nodded, meeting my eyes for the first time. Yeah, it's weird starting at a new school for senior year. A twinge of pity ran through me. I wager. Listen, I'm there if you need assistance with anything, including schoolwork or simply someone to chat to. Okay, Lily smiled slightly at me. Thank you. That's really significant. Mom gave me another embrace as we walked out of the diner. Kate, you are an angel. I hope we can start over, even though I know I have a lot to make up for. Unconfident in my ability to talk, I nodded. As I fell asleep that night, I couldn't get rid of the thought that my life was going to become much more difficult. However, I had a sister and my mother was back in my life, for better or worse. What it would entail for all of us would only become clear with time. After Mom and Lily returned, the months that followed were peculiar. Mom returned to her previous life as if she had never gone, finding employment as a realtor quite fast. For her final year, Lily enrolled at the nearby high school. Unsure of how to handle this new family dynamic, I stayed away. Mom would sometimes call or visit. She would exclaim, "Kate, darling, thank you again for the apartment," with a broad, apparently genuine smile. You've been such a blessing. Uncomfortable with her eloquent appreciation, I would nod. Don't worry, Mom, I'm happy I could assist. I became cautiously friends with Lily. I would listen to her college aspirations or assist her with her math assignments. In a way, having a sister was pleasant, but the burden of the years we'd lost was always a barrier. Lily's graduation followed. I went to the event and saw her collect her diploma from the rear. Mom smiled proudly, and I let myself think for a second about what could have happened if she had stayed. Mom unexpectedly knocked on my door the very following day. Her eyes were burning, her cheeks heated. She abruptly said, "We need to talk," and pushed past me into the living room. Confused, I followed. "What's going on?" She spun around me. "Don't act foolish. Kate, I am aware of the flats. The 4 of them." I felt sick to my stomach. How did she know? "What about them?" Keeping my voice low, I asked. Screaming, "You've been holding out on us," she said. Living the high life while Lily and I scraped by. I became irritated. "Pardon me. One of those flats is yours without any rent. Is that insufficient?" "I should own half of those properties," she spat. "I'm your mom." I was unable to resist. I chuckled. It was completely ridiculous. "You're not serious. When you left us, you forfeited all claim to my belongings. Do you recall? No child support, no parental rights." Her tone abruptly altered to one of desperation. "Remember Lily, Kate, my love. For college, she needs money. If you were to sell only one flat—" "Absolutely not," she interrupted. "Lily's education is not my responsibility." "How can you be so selfish?" Mom cried. "After everything I've done for you?" The final straw was that. "Everything you've done for me," I said, astonished. "You mean to leave me?" "In your farewell message, you called me useless." Or, hold on, are you referring to months of rent-free living in my apartment? Mom flinched as though I had smacked her. She just gazed at me for a time, opening and shutting her lips like a fish out of water. She turned and hurried out, slamming the door behind her without saying another word. I was trembling with hurt and rage as I stood there. How could she attempt to guilt me in this way after everything? I put my head in my hands and sunk into the couch. Although I knew in my heart that allowing Mom to return to my life was risky, I had hoped. Well, I wasn't sure what I had hoped for. I had a sharp, throbbing grief as the excitement subsided. This lady was just a stranger who wanted to take advantage of me, even though she was supposed to be my support system and defender. What about Lily? How was I supposed to handle Lily? I was getting coffee at my normal place 2 weeks after Mom's outburst when I saw the barista staring at me strangely. I noticed a little chatter from a next table while I waited for my order. Isn't it unbelievable? Renting all those apartments while charging her own mother. I went cold. They couldn't possibly be referring to me, yet they were. I heard more murmurs and more sidelong stares throughout the course of the following several days. Mom had apparently been busy telling everyone who would listen her distorted version of events. The Facebook post followed. I almost choked on my sandwich when I saw it during my lunch break. My daughter Kate makes a fortune by renting out her 4 flats, but she won't contribute to her sister's college expenses. I'm barely making ends meet, and she's making me pay outrageous rent. That my own child could be so avaricious and self-centered breaks my heart. Every comment that came in was a stab to my heart. How could she harm her own mother in that way? What a terrible individual. I've always sensed that something was wrong with her. On the bandwagon, friends, family, and even former classmates I hadn't spoken to in years shamed me for my alleged avarice. They all didn't seem to care or remember that this woman had left me when I was a kid. My employer summoned me into his office just when I thought things couldn't get much worse. "Kate," he replied, his expression solemn. "Your mother and I need to discuss this matter. The reputation of the business is beginning to suffer." The blood in my face started to run out. "Sir, I can explain." He extended a hand. "I don't need specifics, but I need this resolved fast and quietly. This type of drama cannot be connected to our company. Recognize." Untrusting myself to speak, I nodded numbly. When I returned to my work, I saw an email alert regarding Mom's apartment's unpaid utilities. Fantastic, simply fantastic. I shook my hands and punched in Mom's number. As a welcome, she snarled, "What do you want?" I inhaled deeply while attempting to maintain a steady voice. "Your apartment's utility bills are past due, Mom. Remember how we said you would take care of those?" She laughed. "Oh, please. With all those flats, you're making a ton of money. You have enough money to cover a few expenses." I murmured, "That's not the point, as my tolerance wore thin. We had an agreement." She interjected, asking, "An agreement?" "Like the promise that you would support your family." That did us a great deal of good. I felt as like everything was falling apart as I sat there with my phone in hand. How could I have allowed this to happen? This was how I got compensated for trying to be good, giving, and kind. I arranged to see a lawyer with a sad heart. "Miss Stevens," the attorney stated as he looked over my case, "evicting your mother is perfectly within your rights. You've given her plenty of notice, and she doesn't have a lease or pay rent. Take note of the utility bills." With a mixture of relief and fear, I nodded. "What do I need to do?" I inquired. He gave me a piece of paper. "This is a formal notice of eviction. We can take legal action if she refuses to cooperate after we serve it to her." With the document in hand, I took a car to Mom's apartment, which was actually my apartment. When I knocked on the door, my hands were shaking. Mom said, her face contorted in annoyance at my presence. "Oh, it's you. Have you finally changed your mind about selling Lily's college apartment?" Lily has chosen her school. Next month is when tuition is due. My surprise gave way to rage. "Are you for real now? You're still making demands after all that you've done." Mom sneered, "Don't be so dramatic. It's the least you can do for family." That was it, the final straw. I shoved the notice of eviction at her. "This is it. You have 30 days to leave the property." Mom's face turned pale as she gazed at the page. Then she blew up without warning. She yelled, "You ungrateful little brute," as her voice reverberated throughout the room. "After everything I've done for you." I refused to back down. "What have you done? You mean to leave me? Spreading false information about me?" She lifted a hand and surged forward. I winced, but the blow did not land. Rather, she spewed abuses in my face while grabbing the front of my shirt. "You hear me? You're nothing. Nothing but a callous, self-centered." I struggled to release myself and grabbed my phone. "That's all. I'm going to call the cops." Mom didn't back down even though her eyes widened. She went on with her fury, her remarks growing more savage by the moment. I was crying uncontrollably and trembling when the cops came. I politely explained the problem and showed them the eviction notice. One officer said, "Ma'am, I think you should calm down and have a polite conversation with your daughter about this." Mom scoffed, "Sybil. Alongside her, she's attempting to abandon us to the streets." The other cop looked at me. "Legally speaking, Miss Stevens, this is a civil case. Without a court warrant, we cannot take her away by force. I would advise attempting to resolve this amicably between you two, or, if need, going to court." I gave a dejected nod. I was infuriated by Mom's victorious grin as the police departed. "You won't do it," she teasingly said. "You don't have the guts to take your own mother to court." She had given birth to me, but she had never been a real mother, and I just gazed at her. Something hardened within of me at that same instant. I said, "Watch me," in a steady, quiet voice. I turned and left before she could reply. I heard the apartment door slam behind me as I arrived at my car. I considered what was ahead as I drove home. More drama, more suffering, a legal battle. But perhaps it was also an opportunity to finally escape the poisonous grip my mother held on me. I thought I would throw up on the day of the court hearing. Mom and Lily were seated on the other side of the courtroom when I entered. Lily appeared to want to vanish, and Mom's eyes were swollen and red. Mom put on quite a show as the events got underway. As she spoke to the judge, her voice broke, and she sobbed uncontrollably. She cried, "Your Honor, my daughter has been so heartless. After everything I've done for her, she's attempting to abandon her own mother and sister." I tightened my hands and forced myself to remain composed. Then I felt a sense of relief when my lawyer got to his feet. He said, "Your Honor," in a steady, assured voice, "I'd like to present some evidence that paints a very different picture of the situation." He continued by outlining the facts, including Mom's refusal to pay child support, the termination of her parental rights, and her desertion when I was 12. He presented the judge with the unpaid utility bills and the rent-free agreement. He wasn't finished, though. "Furthermore, Your Honor, we have evidence that Mrs. Stevens is not, in fact, in the dire financial straits she claims." Mom's eyes widened and her head jerked up. My attorney went on. "Mrs. Stevens' ex-partner left her an apartment in a different city. She presently earns a sizable monthly income from renting out this house." There was silence in the courtroom. With a severe frown, the judge turned to face Mom. "Is this true, Mrs. Stevens?" Mom was looking pale. Her mouth moved back and forth many times before she said, "Yes, Your Honor." When the judge handed down his decision, his voice was icy. "The eviction is granted by this court. In addition, Mrs. Stevens shall reimburse the rent for the month she lived in the flat without paying rent. Your behavior, Mrs. Stevens, is absolutely unacceptable. This case is over." With a resounding sound that seemed to reverberate throughout my body, the gavel fell. It was done. We had prevailed. I saw Lily as we were leaving the courthouse. My heart hurt for her because she appeared lost and perplexed. She was not at blame for this. Ignoring Mom's scowl, I approached her. "Lily," I murmured quietly, "I'm sorry it arrived at this point. You may still contact me if you need assistance. Genuine assistance, okay." With tears in her eyes, she nodded. "I apologize, Kate. I was unaware." I smiled sadly at her and turned to go, feeling as though a burden had been removed. Over the next few weeks, Mom and Lily left my flat. Through rumors, I learned that they had moved into Mom's other home. They didn't get in touch with me, and I didn't try to get in touch with them. Recollections of the previous several months raced through my head as I stood in the now empty flat. The stress of the court fight, the hurt of Mom's betrayal, and the joy I'd had when she returned. But I felt liberated beneath it all. Since I didn't require constant attention, I was always the other daughter. In our own house, I struggled with invisibility as my younger sister, Sarah, fought asthma. Every morning began the same way. I got ready for school while Mom hurried to Sarah's room to check on her breathing. "How are you feeling today, Sarah, honey?" Mom would remark, "Let me take your temperature," in a worried tone. "Remember to bring your inhaler. Would you like me to give Dr. Thompson a call?" I recall observing this everyday routine while I was standing at the doorway, already clothed and prepared for school. I always ate whatever I could make for lunch, which was often just an apple and a sandwich. All of Sarah's favorite dishes were included in specially prepared dinners. Dad was no exception. He put in extra hours at work to cover Sarah's medical expenses, and he focused all of his attention on her when he got home. On his approach to Sarah's room, he would completely ignore me and inquire, "How's my little fighter doing?" Year after year, the trend persisted. As Sarah transitioned between specialists, I developed self-care skills. I packed my own luggage for school excursions, completed my assignments without assistance, and learned how to handle adolescent issues on my own. Mom never worked because she was too busy advocating for Sarah and serving as her personal nurse. By my senior year, I had a well-defined strategy and flawless marks. My parents were too busy taking Sarah to yet another expert to assist with college applications, so I applied for scholarships behind their backs. I was so happy to deliver the news that I rushed home the day I received my full scholarship letter. Mom was in the kitchen making Sarah's special allergy-free supper when I arrived. "I received full tuition to State University, Mom. Dad and you won't be required to pay anything. It's pleasant, my love. Would you be able to arrange the table? Sarah's new meds require her to eat at specific times." For me, that moment made everything clear. I understood that no matter what I accomplished, I would never be the first priority in this household. However, I chose to use it as fuel rather than to let it break me. I had something greater, and I didn't need their praise or attention. I was free. Mom was too preoccupied with Sarah's most recent medical emergency to give me a decent farewell on the day I departed for college. Dad merely gave me some cash for gas and told me to drive carefully. College went by so quickly. I poured myself into my studies, finished with honors, and made my first true friends. I was employed by Reynolds and Company's marketing department immediately after college, and all of a sudden I was making more money than I had ever seen in my life. During college, I hadn't heard much from my parents. Mom would sometimes email me to check on me before diving right into reports about Sarah's most recent health problems. However, when I started working, that changed. I had been working for around 6 months when I received the first contact. Mom said, "Erica, honey," in a lovely, saccharine tone that I had never heard her use before. "I'm in a bit of a bind with your father. With the medical expenses and the fact that Sarah requires some additional treatments." I interrupted her. How much do you need, Mom? Oh, only $2,000. We'll reimburse you the next month. They never reimbursed me for that loan, the one after that, or the one before that. But to be honest, I didn't give a damn. I had something people needed for the first time in my life, and I felt a weird feeling of fulfillment from that. Then I got to know Mike. He always had a positive outlook and made me giggle. After a year of dating, he popped the question in the break room while concealing a ring in a coffee cup. "Oh, but Sarah's having some health issues right now," was Mom's immediate reaction when we told my folks we were getting married. We might not be able to make a significant contribution. Decisively, we don't need anything, I informed her. We're handling it ourselves. And we did. With only our closest friends, we held a modest yet lovely wedding. After paying for everything on our own and enjoying a low-key beach honeymoon, Mike and I returned prepared to start a family. Both of us put in a lot of effort and saved as much money as we could. We saved enough for a tiny apartment down payment in 2 years. It was fully paid off 3 years later. Mike once stated, "We should have a baby," as we were sitting on our balcony and taking in the sunset. I looked at him, this amazing man who had given me unconditional love, support, and a genuine partnership, things I had never had as a child. "Yes," I said, "we should." Perfect and healthy, Em was born on a spring morning. Mike, who took photographs of everything daughter did, was the proudest father I had ever seen. He received a significant promotion at work when she was 2 months old. Just one business trip, he informed me before planting a kiss on Emily's brow. 3 days in Chicago, then I'm all yours again. That morning, I took him to the train station. I didn't see him again after that. I received a call from the train corporation, not Mike. An accident had occurred. There was a derailed train. No one survived. The initial weeks following Mike's passing were a haze. Feeling half dead on the inside, I went about my days as if I were a ghost, feeding Emily, changing her, and doing everything else to keep us both alive. The insurance company contacted with information regarding Mike's life insurance policy, but at that moment, I needed assistance more than money. "Mom," I murmured in a broken voice on the phone, "this cannot be done by me alone. For a few months while I recover, could you assist me with Emily? I'll give you any amount you desire." The other end paused for a long moment. Mom responded, "Oh, honey," and I briefly felt hopeful. "You know, I'm not as young as I used to be," she said. "Given how stressful caring for a newborn is, I just cannot jeopardize my health given my blood pressure. Perhaps you could employ someone, Erica. You now own the insurance funds, correct?" I felt like I was slapped by the words. I reflected on the years Mom had spent caring for Sarah, how she had never been able to work since Sarah required her whole attention. However, I answered bluntly, yeah, when her other daughter and grandchild needed her. I'll figure something out. And I did. Maria, the lovely nanny I found, cherished Emily as if she were her own. With the help of the insurance money, I was able to provide my baby with the greatest care possible, and we gradually adapted to our new normal. Emily's smile expanded every day as she matured from a baby to a toddler. The call regarding Sarah's engagement then came. "Your sister is marrying James Peterson," Mom said over the phone. "That large real estate development firm is owned by his family. Is it not unbelievable?" I remarked, "That's great," as I observed Emily stacking blocks on the floor of our living room. I'm happy for her. But the next call wasn't so joyful. Dad sounded stressed. "Erica, we need to talk about Sarah's wedding. We're taking out a loan using the house as collateral." When he told me the amount, I felt sick. "Dad, no. That's your house, your retirement security. You can't risk that for one day. Now listen here, he said, his voice taking on that stern tone I remembered from childhood. We won't have the Petersons thinking we can't give Sarah a proper wedding. We've already signed the papers. I tried reasoning with them. I offered to help pay for a more modest celebration, but Mom just got offended. You don't understand, Erica. This is Sarah's big day. She deserves her dream wedding. We can't have her future in-laws thinking we're common. I thought about my own wedding. Small, modest, perfect. Mike and I had paid for everything ourselves, proud to start our life together without debt. But of course, Sarah needed something grander. Sarah always needed more. Sarah's wedding was exactly what you'd expect. Extravagant, over the top, and according to Mom, absolutely perfect. Then Sarah moved away with James to Boston, and suddenly my parents' perfect daughter wasn't so perfect anymore. Can you believe she won't even take our calls? Mom sobbed into the phone one evening. We took out that loan for her wedding, and now she won't even help with the payments. I bit back and I told you so, and instead said, "That must be hard, Mom." Gradually, my parents started calling more often, not just when they needed money. They wanted to see Emily, invited us for Sunday dinners, remembered my birthday. For the first time in years, it felt nice, like maybe we could be a real family. I started helping them out, paying bills here and there, buying groceries. For Dad and Mom's 35th wedding anniversary, I surprised them with a vacation to Florida and a new car for Dad. "You're such a good daughter, Erica," Mom said, actually hugging me. It was the first time I could remember her doing that in years. Then Dad got sick, really sick. Something with his heart kept him out of work for months. One evening, they asked me to come over after Emily's bedtime. "We're going to lose the house," Dad said, his voice weak. The loan payments, without my salary, Mom was crying. "We don't know what to do, Erica. We're behind on payments already." "Move in with us," Mom suggested. Suddenly, we could help with Emily after school, and you could help with the loan payments. "Please, sweetheart, we don't want to lose our home." I thought about my apartment, my independence, the life I'd built for myself and Emily. "I don't know, Mom. It's an hour commute to work from here." "Pleased," Dad said, and I saw real fear in his eyes. "We'll make it work." Emily would love having her grandparents around. They were right about that part. When I told Emily we might move in with Grandma and Grandpa, her whole face lit up. Within a month, we were moved in. I found good tenants for my apartment, a young couple with steady jobs who signed a year-long lease. Emily was overjoyed, running around the house, exploring every corner like it was a magical castle. I took over the loan payments and most of the household expenses. Mom seemed to transform overnight into the grandmother she'd never been before, picking Emily up from school, helping her with homework, making her favorite snacks. "Look what Grandma made for you, Emily," she'd say, pulling fresh cookies from the oven. Emily would beam, and I'd try not to remember all the times I'd come home to an empty kitchen as a child. For a while, it seemed to work. Dad's health improved, though slowly. I adjusted to the long commute, telling myself it was worth it to see Emily so happy. Every month when I made the loan payment, I reminded myself that I was helping my parents keep their home. But there was always this nagging feeling in the back of my mind, a voice that whispered, "How long can this last? When will the other shoe drop?" After Dad recovered and returned to work, I noticed Mom started making excuses about watching Emily. "My back hurts today, Erica. I'm not as young as I used to be. It's so exhausting keeping up with a child her age." Finally, one morning, she just came out with it. "I think you should hire a nanny. I can't handle this anymore." So I hired Karen, a sweet older lady who clicked with Emily immediately. Every morning, I'd leave for my hour-long commute to work, wondering why I was still living in my parents' house when I had a perfectly good apartment across town. But every time I mentioned moving back, Mom would bake her famous apple pie, the one she knew Emily loved, and say things like, "Oh, but we love having you both here. Don't we live so well together?" Emily would beam, her face covered in apple filling, and I pushed down my frustration for another month. This went on for 2 years. Then one evening, Mom and Dad sat me down after Emily went to bed. "Honey," Mom started, her eyes already welling up. "We still have 2 years left on Sarah's wedding loan." Dad jumped in. "We know it's a lot to ask, but could you stay until it's paid off? We're so close to being free of it." I thought about the exhausting commute, the way my life had been put on hold. But then I thought about Emily's happy face when she talked about living with her grandparents. "Okay," I said, "1 more year." I called my tenants and extended their lease. Then came the day that changed everything. I walked up to the house after another long day at work, and there was Sarah, standing in the doorway with a very pregnant belly. "Move away from the door, Sarah," Mom screeched from inside. "You'll catch your death in that draft." Sarah smirked at me as she stepped aside. Well, well, look who's here. Inside, it was like stepping back in time. Mom was fluttering around Sarah like a worried hen, adjusting pillows, checking her temperature, asking if she needed anything. "I made your favorite dinner, Sarah, and there's herbal tea for the baby." During dinner, Sarah dropped her bomb. "I've decided to have the baby here," she announced, "so you and Dad can help with the newborn." Mom's face lit up like a Christmas tree. "Of course we will. We'll help with everything." I sat there, fork frozen halfway to my mouth, as the memory hit me like a physical blow. Me, alone with 3-month-old Emily, desperately calling Mom after Mike's death. You know I can't risk my health taking care of a baby, Erica. I looked at my mother, really looked at her, and saw with perfect clarity what I'd been trying to ignore for years. Nothing had changed. Nothing would ever change. Sarah would always be the one who needed them, and I would always be the one who needed to understand. For the next 2 weeks, I watched history repeat itself in excruciating detail. Mom waited on Sarah hand and foot, bringing her breakfast in bed, scheduling doctor's appointments, and stocking the house with her favorite foods. The monthly apple pie that had been Mom's way of keeping Emily and me there stopped appearing altogether. The final straw came one evening when I overheard Mom and Sarah discussing nursery plans for my room and Emily's room. I couldn't take it anymore. I walked into the living room where everyone was gathered. "So that's it. You're just going to pretend the last few years never happened. That Sarah didn't abandon you with a massive loan that I've been helping pay." Sarah rolled her eyes. "Oh, here we go, Saint Erica to the rescue." "Sarah, honey, don't get upset. It's not good for the baby. Mom fussed." "No, let's talk about this," I pressed on. "Let's talk about how you mortgaged your house for her wedding, and then she disappeared. Let's talk about how I've been paying that loan while she was off living her best life." "That's none of your business," Sarah snapped. "Nobody asked you to pay anything. If you're so unhappy here, why don't you just go back to your precious apartment?" "Erica," Mom cut in, practically pushing me toward the door, "why don't you run to the store? We need a few things." She thrust a shopping list into my hands. "It'll give everyone a chance to calm down." I felt like a child being sent to my room, but I went. Maybe the fresh air would help me think clearly. 20 minutes later, I returned with the groceries. The sight that greeted me stopped me cold. Emily was sitting on the front steps, crying, surrounded by hastily packed bags and boxes, all our belongings. "Mommy." She ran to me, sobbing. Aunt Sarah yelled at me. She said we had to get out, and when I started crying, she scared me and pushed all our stuff out here. Something snapped inside me. I stormed into the house. "How dare you?" I shouted. "How dare you treat my daughter like this?" "Erica, calm down," Dad started. "No, I will not calm down. For years, I've watched you favor Sarah. When Mike died and I needed help with Emily, you couldn't be bothered. But Sarah snaps her fingers and you jump. I paid your bills, your loan, helped save your house, and this is how you repay me. By throwing my child out." "Now listen here," Mom began. "No, you listen. I spent my entire life being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who's supposed to understand when Sarah needs something. I've given you everything, and you've given me nothing but scraps of attention when Sarah wasn't around to demand it." I grabbed the grocery bags and hurled them across the room. Cans rolled across the floor, eggs cracked, and vegetables scattered everywhere. Mom gasped. Sarah smirked. Dad's face turned red with anger. "Get out," he roared. "Get out of our house, and don't you dare come back." "You're no daughter of ours," Mom added, her voice cold. "We never want to see you again." I stood there, breathing hard, looking at these people who were supposed to be my family. Then I turned and walked out, closing the door on 28 years of trying to be good enough. Standing on the sidewalk that night, surrounded by hastily packed bags and boxes, I felt completely lost. Emily's small hand gripped mine tightly as tears rolled down her cheeks. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands, trying to think clearly. Our apartment was rented out for another year, and I couldn't just kick the tenants out legally. I needed to give them 3 months' notice. I called a nearby hotel first, then ordered an Uber XL to help with our bags. As Emily fell asleep in the hotel bed that night, I sat in the darkness with my laptop, searching for temporary apartments. The next morning, I found a furnished, month-to-month rental about 15 minutes from my office. It wasn't perfect, but it would do. I called my tenants while Emily was eating breakfast. "Hi, Lisa," I said to my tenant. "I hate to do this, but I need to give you notice. Some family circumstances have changed." Lisa was understanding. "Of course, we'll start looking right away. Take care, Erica." The next 3 months were strange. Our temporary apartment felt like living in limbo, not quite homeless, but not quite home either. Emily was quieter than usual, processing everything in her own way. Finally, after what felt like forever, Lisa called to say they'd found a new place. 3 months to the day after being thrown out of my parents' house, Emily and I walked back into our apartment. The moment I turned the key in the lock, something shifted inside me. This was our home, our safe place. No drama, no favoritism, no walking on eggshells. We were home. Emily ran from room to room, rediscovering her old toys and books we'd left behind. That night, after Emily was asleep, I sat down and really looked at our finances. We were doing well, better than well, actually. Without supporting my parents, I had extra money each month. I opened a new savings account specifically for Emily's college fund and set up automatic monthly transfers. Over the next few weeks, we settled back into our old routine. Emily went back to her old school, where her friends welcomed her back with open arms. I threw myself into work, earning a promotion I'd been too distracted to pursue while living with my parents. 6 peaceful months passed. Emily and I had found our rhythm again: school, work, movie nights, weekend adventures. No drama, no guilt, no complicated family dynamics. Just us. Then came the knock at our door one Sunday morning. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I checked the peephole. My heart stopped. There stood my parents, and they were holding a baby. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. "Erica, please." Mom started, crying immediately. "We need your help." Dad looked older than I remembered, more broken. "Sarah, she's gone." They told me the whole story as they stood in my doorway. I hadn't invited them in. Sarah's husband had discovered she was cheating. A DNA test proved the baby wasn't his. He divorced her and refused any responsibility for the child. And Sarah, she dropped the baby with our parents and disappeared. "We don't know where she is," Mom sobbed. "She won't answer our calls. We can't do this alone, Erica. We need you to move back in, help with the loan payments, help with the baby." "I'm too old to care for an infant," Mom added, making that familiar tired face I'd seen so many times before. "Please, sweetheart, we'll lose the house." I looked at them, really looked at them. Mom's manipulative tears, Dad's desperate eyes, the innocent baby in their arms. And suddenly, I saw everything with perfect clarity. "No," I said quietly. "What?" Mom's tears stopped abruptly. I said, "No, I won't help you. Not this time. How can you be so heartless?" Mom's voice rose, echoing through the hallway. "Your own family. We'll be out on the street. They'll take our house, all because you're too selfish to help." The doors of many neighbors opened, revealing interested faces. "Mom, would you like to do this here?" "All right," I spoke steadily. "Let's discuss how you turned down my request for assistance when Mike passed away and I had a 3-month-old. Let's discuss how you mortgaged your home to finance Sarah's nuptials. In the same way that she has now abandoned her child, let's discuss how Sarah abandoned you with that debt. This is about you finally having to deal with the repercussions of your decisions, not about me being callous." Dad said, "How dare you," first. "How dare you? Your persistent bias is what brought to this circumstance. You want me to clean up your mess once more after teaching Sarah that she could do anything she wanted without facing any repercussions. Not taking place." Mom sobbed, "We're your parents." "No," I firmly answered. "You are the parents of Sarah. The night you tossed my kid out on the street, you made that very evident. Please go now and don't return. Like you did for the most of my life, forget my address, forget my phone number, and forget I'm even here." I leaned against it, panting, and shut the door on their cries. I could still hear Mom shouting through the door, but I was no longer affected. "Mommy?" Emily watched me from the corridor. "Are you okay?" I approached her and gave her a firm embrace. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm more than all right. I am at liberty." I saw my parents for the final time then. I have no idea what became of them, Sarah or the infant. Emily occasionally inquires about them, and I tell her the truth. I remind her that sometimes avoiding hurtful individuals, even if they are relatives, is the best course of action. Our lives are going well right now. Emily is doing really well in school. We're creating the type of life I've always imagined, one founded on genuine love rather than duty or manipulation, and I adore my work. I occasionally get a little depressed about what may have been when I look at old family pictures late at night. I know I made the correct decision, though, when I see Emily growing up strong and confident in the knowing that she is loved without conditions. I'm Jennifer, and I've been by myself for the majority of my life. My grandma raised me after my parents passed away in a car accident when I was only 5 years old. She was my sole family, my compass, and my anchor. I believed I had found a new family in Mark, my then fiancé, but she died just before my wedding. We have been married for 2 years and reside in a lovely 2-story townhouse that I rented prior to our nuptials. When we were married, it made sense to stay there because it was at the ideal location. I honestly thought we had the ideal situation once Mark moved his belongings in. I was able to successfully balance my employment and our family life, since I was an associate editor-in-chief at a large publishing business and worked from home. You know what's great about this house. After supper, Mark would frequently comment, stretched on our couch. It's spacious enough for gatherings with family. My parents would like this place. Every time he brought this up, I would grin uneasily. Yeah, maybe, I would say, attempting to conceal my uneasiness. I was uncomfortable with the idea of home visitors, but I never really told Mark this. When his sister Sarah unexpectedly arrived with her 2 primary school-aged children, Tommy and Lisa, everything changed. I can still picture them standing there with their bags as I opened the door. Surprise! Sarah shouted as she pushed by me and entered the home. The kids need some quality time with their uncle, you know, male influence and all that. As her kids, Tommy and Lisa, sprinted muddy-chewed straight to our immaculate living room, I remained still. Mark came up behind me, grinning broadly. Isn't this fantastic, Jen? Sarah may take over the office while the children remain in the guest room. The office, I said haltingly. But that's where I work. He remarked, you can work anywhere, honey, as he carried their items upstairs. It's just for the school holidays. I had no clue this was only the beginning as I woke up that first night and listened to the mayhem downstairs. Sarah's children fighting over the TV remote. Sarah whining over the food I had prepared. I had no idea that this particular moment would start a chain of events that would end my marriage. The weeks that followed were a living misery. Sarah's children had gotten totally out of hand. Even though I had edited several young adult novels about problematic teenagers, I had never witnessed youngsters act in such a manner. Hey, stupid lady. With his hands coated in what I believed was merely mud, Tommy would shout at me from the other side of the breakfast table. I want pancakes. To reason with him, I would attempt. First, please wash your hands, and second, my name is Jennifer or Aunt Jen. Lisa would interject, purposefully dropping her orange drink on the ground. Whatever, dummy, she said. Mom says we don't have to listen to you because you're not really family. I would expect Sarah to chastise them, but instead she would just sit there and browse through her phone, looking up every now and again to remark something like, kids will be kids, or they're just expressing themselves. I was trying to fulfill a very important work deadline one especially difficult morning when Sarah stormed into my temporary office in the living room. She declared, the kids need lunch, as though I were her personal chef. Something sugar-free and organic. Perhaps some gluten-free sandwiches and hand-pressed juice. Sarah, I have a really important deadline, I stated. She interjected, rolling her eyes. Oh, please, she said. You spend your days typing at home. In contrast to being a mother, it is not actual labor. In a never-ending cycle of cleaning, cooking, and attempting to rescue my professional obligations, the days blended together. Every day, the children would hurl food at meals, wipe their filthy hands on the walls, and ruin their rooms. The worst thing, Mark didn't appear to notice any of it. The school vacations finally came to an end after what seemed like a lifetime. I had a serious talk with Mark the morning Sarah and the children departed. I added, Mark, we need to talk about what just happened, still feeling worn out by the experience. What are you saying? It was wonderful to have them here, he said, in fact perplexed. No, it wasn't. I was unable to accomplish any work since your sister's children were so rude, and she did nothing to assist. Don't invite anyone else without first talking to me, please. Mark nodded, seeming surprised. All right, honey. I swear that the next time, I'll speak with you first. Over the next 2 weeks, I worked to get our house and my mental health back on track. My job obligations had piled up dangerously high, The furniture needed to be thoroughly cleaned, and the walls needed to be repainted. I also recalled something significant regarding our leasing agreement around this period. One night I said, "Mark, I should point out that our landlord is quite particular about visitors. There are certain provisions about it in the agreement." He dismissively waved his hand. "Don't stress over it. Why don't we simply put my name on the lease? You won't have to worry about it in that manner." The following day, we changed the lease to his name, but I still made my regular rent payments from my account. 6 months passed, and life had finally returned to normal, or so I thought. I was catching up on work one Tuesday morning when I heard Mark's excited voice from the kitchen. "Of course you can stay with us, Mom. We have plenty of room. You and Dad can take the master bedroom. We'll move downstairs to the guest room." My stomach dropped. I rushed to the kitchen just in time to hear his mother saying something about sewage repairs and water being cut off at their house. "Mark," I whispered urgently, tugging at his sleeve, "can we talk about this first?" He covered the phone with his hand. "Mom and Dad need a place to stay while their plumbing gets fixed. What's there to talk about?" That evening, we had our first real fight in months. "You promised me, Mark. You promised we'd discuss these things together." "What do you want me to do, Jen?" he snapped. "They're my parents. I can't leave them without running water. Stop being so selfish." The next morning, my in-laws arrived with enough luggage to survive an apocalypse. Within hours, my mother-in-law, Linda, had rearranged my kitchen cabinets, criticized my choice of cleaning products, and commented on the layer of dust on the windowsills. Jennifer, dear, she called from the living room, where she was directing her husband, Bob, about furniture placement. "When you're done with whatever it is you do on that computer, we'll need dinner. Something substantial, not those silly salads you make." I gritted my teeth. "Linda, I'm actually working right now. I have a deadline." "Working?" She laughed, looking at Bob. "Sitting at home all day isn't work." "Now about dinner." Days blurred together. I tried to write emails while Linda stood over my shoulder, commenting on my posture. I'd be editing manuscripts while she demanded I do the laundry properly. Apparently, I'd been folding sheets wrong my entire adult life. "Mark," I pleaded one evening, "I need help. I can't keep up with everything." "You're right," he said, and for a moment, I felt relief. I should take some time off work. I smiled, grateful, until he added, "Dad and I are thinking about a fishing trip. Get some real father-son bonding time." A fishing trip. I couldn't believe my ears. That's not what I meant. But he was already packing his gear, excited as a kid at Christmas. The next morning, he and Bob left for their bonding experience, leaving me alone with Linda. Well, she said, hands on her hips as the door closed behind them, "Since you're not busy with that little computer job of yours, we can finally get this house properly organized." I looked at my laptop, where 3 urgent emails from my boss sat unanswered, then at Linda's determined face. In that moment, I realized something had fundamentally shifted in my marriage, and not for the better. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, only a day after Mark and his father left for their fishing trip, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Sarah standing there with Tommy and Lisa, surrounded by even more luggage than last time. "Surprise!" She pushed past me, kids in tow. "The children have been crying for their grandparents. We couldn't stay away." I stood in the doorway, my mind refusing to process what was happening. Linda appeared behind me, squealing with delight. "My babies," she hugged the children. "Sarah, darling, you're just in time." Jennifer was about to start dinner. I wasn't about to start dinner. I was about to join a critical video call with my publishing team, but nobody cared about that. Actually, I started, I have an important work meeting." Always with the excuses, Sarah rolled her eyes. "Mom told me you just sit at that computer all day pretending to work." The next few days were absolute torture. While Mark and Bob were off enjoying their fishing trip, I was trapped in a house of chaos. The kids ran wild through every room, leaving destruction in their wake. Sarah spent her days video calling friends, complaining about my cooking, and Linda criticized everything I did. Nobody lifted a finger to help, but they all had opinions about how I wasn't doing enough. When Mark and his father finally returned from their fishing trip 5 days later, I was ready for a serious conversation. I'd rehearsed it in my head, firm but fair, explaining how impossible the situation had become. But before I could get a word in, Mark burst through the door, beaming with joy. "Isn't this amazing?" He spread his arms wide, taking in the chaos of our once peaceful home. "The whole family together. We should do this more often." Often, I felt the room spin more often. Yeah, Dad and I were talking while fishing, and you know what would be great? If we all lived together for a while, like a real family. The children ran past us, tracking mud across the floor I had just cleaned. Sarah yelled from upstairs about needing fresh towels. Linda appeared to remind me it was almost dinner time. "Mark," I managed to choke out, "can we talk privately later?" "Honey," he waved me off. "Dad's showing everyone the pictures from our trip." That night, I lay awake in our cramped guest room, listening to the chaos above. Our bedroom, now occupied by his parents, creaked with every movement. Sarah's kids were still running around despite the late hour. Someone was using the microwave again. My phone buzzed with another email from my boss. "Second missed deadline this week. We need to talk." My life had become a nightmare. I was surrounded by strangers who treated me like their personal maid, children who destroyed everything they touched, and a husband who couldn't or wouldn't see what was happening. The next morning, I woke up early, determined to get some work done before everyone else got up. I'd started barricading myself in the home office, my last sanctuary in this chaos. But when I opened the door, my heart sank. Sarah was sitting at my desk, my laptop open in front of her, while Tommy and Lisa sprawled on the floor, surrounded by construction paper, glue, and what looked like half the garden's worth of dirt. "Oh, good you're up." Sarah didn't even look at me. "The kids have a school project due tomorrow. We're using your laptop for research." "That's my work laptop," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I have deadlines." "Don't be so selfish," Sarah cut me off. "This is for their education. You can do your little typing job later." I found Mark in the kitchen, grabbing his briefcase for work. "Mark, they've taken over my office. They're using my laptop. I can't work." "Not now, Jen," he rushed past me, checking his watch. "I'm late for a meeting. Just share the laptop, okay? It's for the kids' school." Feeling dizzy, I headed to the bathroom, hoping a shower would help me think clearly. But when I opened the bathroom door, I nearly vomited. The toilet was overflowing with mud and dirt. Footprints tracked through the mess across the tile floor. Handprints decorated the wall. Oh yeah, Lisa's voice piped up behind me. We needed somewhere to mix the dirt for our project. Tommy said the toilet would be good, 'cause it has water already. I stood there, staring at the destruction. Somewhere in the house, I could hear Linda complaining about lunch plans. Sarah was yelling at the kids to get more supplies for their project. The toilet gurgled ominously. Something inside me snapped. Without saying a word, I cleaned up the bathroom. Every swipe of the mop, every scrub of the walls, felt like another nail in the coffin of my marriage. When I finished, I went to our bedroom, the guest room now, and looked around at what my life had become. The next morning, I waited until Mark left for work. I listened to his car pull out of the driveway, counted to 60, then moved with quiet efficiency. I packed a small bag, some clothes, toiletries, my phone charger. The only thing I really needed was my laptop, which I managed to recover from the office while Sarah was in the kitchen complaining about the breakfast I hadn't made. Nobody noticed when I slipped out the front door. Nobody called out to ask where I was going. The hotel I checked into wasn't fancy, but it had 3 things my house no longer offered: silence, privacy, and peace. For the first time in weeks, I could hear myself think. I took the longest shower of my life, ordered room service, and actually managed to get some work done. I kept expecting my phone to explode with messages. Surely Mark would notice I was gone. Surely he'd be worried. Surely someone would wonder where the person who did all the cooking and cleaning had disappeared to. But as the hours ticked by, my phone remained silent. No missed calls, no frantic text messages, no concern at all for where I'd gone or why. After 3 days of silence, I decided to go home, not because I missed them, but because I needed answers. As I approached our front door, I heard music and laughter spilling out into the street. What I walked into felt like a punch to the gut. A full-blown party was in progress. Streamers hung from the ceiling. Plates of food covered every surface, and a dozen unfamiliar faces filled our living room. Nobody noticed me slip inside. Through the crowd, I spotted Mark dancing with Sarah in the middle of the room, both of them laughing. More relatives I'd never met were sprawled across our furniture, drinking and chatting as if they owned the place. I moved through the party like a ghost until I found myself near the kitchen. That's when I heard them. And the best part is, my mother-in-law was saying to a woman I didn't recognize, we didn't have to spend a dime on hotels or restaurants. No repairs needed at our house at all. We just needed a change of scenery. The woman chuckled. Clever. And you got a free housewife out of the deal too, she added. Yes, that Jennifer, Linda's voice dripped with contempt. Though she's not much of a housewife, always complaining about her work. Can you believe she actually ran away 3 days ago? Not that anyone misses her cooking. They burst into laughter. I stood frozen, their words hitting me like physical blows. It had all been a lie. The broken sewage system, the urgent repairs, all of it fabricated so they could have a free vacation at my expense. Something inside me snapped. I pushed through the crowd until I found Mark still dancing and drinking without a care in the world. We need to talk. I grabbed his arm. He followed me to the hallway, looking annoyed at being pulled away from his fun. Your mother just told everyone there were never any repairs needed at their house, I said, my voice shaking. They just wanted a free place to stay. Did you know about this? He shrugged, and in that casual gesture, I saw our entire marriage crumble. So what if I did? He said, their family, they needed a break. A break? I couldn't believe my ears. I'm the one who cooked for them, cleaned for them while they insulted me and took over my home. And you knew it was all a lie. Oh, stop being so dramatic, he sneered. You don't understand. You're an orphan. The word orphan hit me like a slap. Images flashed through my mind. The car accident that took my parents when I was 5, my grandmother raising me alone, her empty seat at our wedding. That's right, he continued, his voice cruel. You're just a lonely loser who doesn't understand what it means to have a real close family. Maybe if you had one, you wouldn't be such a selfish. Tears burned in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Without a word, I walked to our former bedroom and gathered what remained of my belongings. Behind me, the party continued as if nothing had happened. No one tried to stop me, not even Mark. I barely settled into my hotel room and started apartment hunting online when my phone rang. Seeing the landlord's number flash across my screen made my stomach clench. Jennifer, Mr. Peterson's voice was tight with tension. I've been receiving numerous complaints from the neighbors about your property. My former property, I corrected him. I don't live there anymore. The lease was transferred to Mark Thompson, my husband, remember? There was a heavy pause on the line. Yes, well, the neighbors are reporting loud parties, excessive noise at all hours, children running wild in the common areas, and multiple unauthorized residents. That sounds terrible, I said, keeping my voice neutral. But as I said, it's not my responsibility anymore. Mr. Peterson sighed deeply. I want you to know that I'll be forced to take the harshest measures allowed under the lease agreement. I'm only calling you as a courtesy because you were such a good tenant for so long. I appreciate the heads up, I replied, but you'll need to discuss this with Mark. After hanging up, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I didn't bother warning Mark about the call. Let him deal with the consequences of his choices for once. I found a lovely one-bedroom apartment in a quiet building across town. The landlady was a retired teacher who lived downstairs and appreciated that I worked from home. It's good to have someone around during the day, she said. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night without being awakened by midnight snacks or early morning chaos. Then 2 weeks into my peaceful life, Mark called. Jen, we're in serious trouble, he blurted before I could speak. Peterson showed up today with a stack of papers. He's demanding double rent for the month, plus some ridiculous fine. I continued typing my email, letting him ramble. Did you know it was against the lease to have overnight guests or parties? Why didn't you tell me? I did tell you, I replied calmly multiple times. You didn't want to listen. Well, I didn't read the whole thing when we transferred it, he admitted. Look, can you talk to Peterson? He liked you. Maybe you can explain. Explain what? I cut him off. That you moved your entire extended family into a rental property without permission. That you've been hosting parties and disturbing the neighbors. That you ignored every warning I gave you about the lease agreement. The neighbors called the police last night, he continued desperately. Mom and Dad got fined for noise violations. Sarah's kids were running through the building at midnight, and someone complained. We need your help, Jen. You know how to handle these things. I thought about all the times I'd handled things for them, all the times I'd cleaned up their messes, literal and figurative. No, I said simply. What do you mean, no? I mean no. You have a whole big close-knit family there to help you, remember? The real family you said I wouldn't understand because I'm just a lonely orphan. Goodbye, Mark. I hung up mid-plea, turned my phone off, and went back to work. For the first time in months, I smiled. Sometimes karma doesn't need any help at all. The day after Mark's desperate call about the fines, my phone rang again. His name flashed on the screen, and I almost didn't answer. But something told me I should hear whatever he had to say. They're gone, he said without preamble. Mom, Dad, Sarah, the kids, they all left. Come home, Jen. We can go back to how things were. I almost laughed at the suggestion. Go back. As if the past months could be erased like crayon marks from a wall. There's no going back, Mark. Please, his voice cracked. Peterson's asking for so much money. Maybe we could split the costs, half the fine and the double rent. I can't afford it on my own. This time, I did laugh, a sharp, bitter sound that surprised even me. Oh, now you want to split things fairly. Where was this concern for fairness when I was cooking and cleaning for your entire family, when they took over my office, my home, my life? But what about your real close-knit family? I interrupted. Surely they'll help you pay. After all, I'm just a lonely orphan who doesn't understand family values, remember? A week later, I heard through our mutual friend Amy that Peterson had evicted Mark. She told me he'd shown up at his parents' doorstep with his bags, only to be turned away. The irony was almost poetic. Mark's final call came as I was finishing dinner in my peaceful new apartment. My divorce papers lay on the coffee table, filed that morning. "Please, Jen," he begged. "I've lost everything, the house, my family. I made a mistake. We could start over. I've learned my lesson." I surveyed my little yet peaceful flat. My coffee mug was just where I had put it, and my laptop was sitting on my desk where I had left it. There is no mess in the kitchen, no mud on the floors, and no crayon on the walls. "Mark, you are correct on one point," I muttered. "Yes, you did lost everything. One decision at a time, though you lost it yourself. Every time you disregarded my sentiments, every time you put your family above our marriage, and each time you stood by and watched them treat me badly without saying anything. I am capable of changing." I interrupted him, saying, "I've already filed for divorce, and no, this isn't up for discussion. You demonstrated to me your true self and your feelings for me. Think of it as a gift, because I won't be wondering again." I blocked his phone after hanging up. The sun was sinking outside my window, illuminating the sky with dazzling pinks and oranges. A new manuscript was waiting for me on my desk. Fortunately, my phone didn't make any noise. I often wonder what my grandma would say if she could see me right now. Family, she often reminded me, is about love, loyalty, and respect, not blood. Naturally, she was correct. She generally was. As Mark mercilessly pointed out, I may be an orphan, but I've finally realized that loneliness isn't the same as being alone. Additionally, you may not always deserve the family you are born into or marries into. You have to preserve yourself sometimes, and I did precisely that.